Well, you did it. You made it to part 2 of Reinventing Yourself Forever and Always. So if you haven't watched part 1, it's in the description, so start there.
Man, don't tell me what to do.
In this video, we'll be taking everything you wrote and did in part 1, and we'll form a personalized, just for you plan of action, a trail guide, or, for you, a compass to take you up the mountain. This is all about setting and following through with goals and micro habits, which sounds boring, but we'll get there. You're gonna love it. Before we begin, subscribe if you're a man who knows that you can do better and be more than you are right now. We need strong men. So glad you're watching this thing. Am I? I don't know. I don't know who you are. Today, we are sculpting your plan or your compass or map, whatever analogy you prefer, that will guide you up the mountain for the next 6 months. So, shall we begin? To start, it is crucial, I believe, to understand what we're doing here. And I don't mean just what we're attempting to do in becoming better, becoming more than we are right now, but literally what we're doing here, like on this planet. And to understand that, I think you have to understand sacrifice. Sacrifice is a deliberate, conscious choice to give up something of value in the pursuit of something greater, something better. It's like the fire that will propel you beyond immediate gratification and towards meaningful, impactful change in your life. Sacrifice is what you'll be undertaking over the next 6 months as we build this thing out in this video. It's literally sacrificing pleasures, habits, comforts that you've held to in the past in order to gain something more, something better. So if you followed everything in the first video and did it the right way and took the time and all of that jazz, it should have helped at least identify your aim and your high ideals. And we'll be using those in this video because those are the things that are waiting for you, literally waiting for you at the top of the mountain that we're heading towards. But before we actually step onto the trail and get this thing going, we need to organize and simplify and clarify all that you wrote down, all that you spouted out in the last video. But before we get into all of that, the practical and actually mapping out your 6 months, let me just get through this sacrifice part. It's very important, I think, to understand it, and then we'll get into the practical side. So sacrifice is not just about deprivation. It's where we give up something present for something that we believe will be better in the future. It's like a contract with the future. And when you combine sacrifice with meaning, which is what we went through in video 1 really, is just to figure out what that meaning is. The combination of those two things, sacrifice and meaning, fuels our perseverance through what are for sure going to be numerous and inevitable challenges and difficulties. Sacrificing anything, even for a worthy goal, as you are in doing this, and as I am, as I continue up the mountain, it's rarely, if ever, easy, guaranteed not to be in a sense, because you will have fear and self-doubt and temptations, and they will be ripping and tugging on your pants like our new puppy does constantly. Except this puppy is super ugly and the most horrid puppy in existence, and you're gonna hate it. But you need to remember that your sacrifice isn't for you. Ultimately, it is for others. And most importantly, it's for those who mean the most to you, which for me is my wife and my kids. Whoever that is for you, you need to realize that here's that ugly puppy right now. This is what's going to be at your toes. A little distraction there. Where was I? The betterment that you are, is she peeing? No. Okay, that's great. The betterment that you're working towards achieving is also going to flow out and better your local community. And out of that, ultimately, and in a very real way, it will impact society and our world as a whole. Making yourself better is better for the world, ultimately. That's 100% true. So I would encourage you as you go through this process to remember that, like meditate on it, because it should add the deeper layer of meaning and motivation when you need it most, which will be probably constantly, if you're anything like me. Let's build this thing out though. So what we're gonna be diving into deeply here is literally something that I wish I had known years ago. And it's such a simple, stupid thing, but I'd never really understood it. And that is literally, well, building out the map. So let's get into the practical. In this first step, we're gonna be going over a lot of information. We're gonna be going over how to create these goals that we're gonna be creating, because in step one, we're gonna actually be writing these down. What are the things that wait for us at the top of the mountain? What are we climbing this mountain for? What do we want to invoke or add to our life? In this, we're gonna be going over what SMART goals are. If you don't know, it's important information. Maybe you do, and that's fine, you can skip it. And we're also gonna be going over what high five is, because each of these 5 goals are gonna be attached to one of these high 5 foundational cornerstone pieces. There's probably only 4 cornerstones out, but in ours, there's 5. Before we get in, grab some paper or something to write on, because after we go through all these, you'll actually write your 5 goals. Step 1, we need to clarify your aim. To do that, you need to gather up everything that you wrote from the last video. All of the answers that you gave to those questions, pull them out, because we'll be using those to create this map for you. Out of those answers to the questions, we're not going to create one singular goal. There's not going to be one thing that you're trying to reach at the top of the mountain. There's going to be 5. Each of these connect with what I call the high fives, because high fives are cool. Real men don't shake hands. They slap hands and a high five. If you want to learn more about the high fives, which is really, in a sense, the foundation for these goals that we're building, I'll put a link in the description to a video that details these high fives. They're pretty simple though. In a nutshell, high fives are our mind, our body, our spiritual self, spirit, relationships, and our work. What you want to do as you write out a goal for each of these 5 things, mind, body, spirit, relationships, work, and we'll go through those a little bit here, is you want to make them audacious goals that really make you excited, but also make you nervous because they're so big. You know that you couldn't achieve these on your own. Don't worry about how big they are, because what we do from there is break them down into literally bite-sized, achievable daily chunks that make winning and success every day easy, and literally progress guaranteed if you follow them. I mean, anything could happen. You could die tomorrow, but as close to a guarantee as possible. So there is a system for setting goals called the SMART system. And that's what we're going to be using, because it's tried and true, to create this 6-month strategy, plan, map, compass, whatever you want to call it. So if you're not familiar with it, I'm going to dive into that a little bit. I'll try to create chapters in this video so you can skip this if you know all about the SMART goal system. I didn't. This was all new for me, and when I heard about it, I was like, what? Why didn't I know this? SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So what it does is it helps create very clear, attainable, and hopefully meaningful objectives, and it makes it easy to track your progress, and it's just really, really useful. So this is a breakdown of each of these components that create SMART, which again, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. How do you not have those memorized yet? You're so far behind. So let's start with specific. This just means specific. Do you know what specific means? Do you not know? If you don't know what specific means, get a dictionary.
You know something? You suck.
Specific. The goal should be very clear and specific. They shouldn't be vague. Like, they shouldn't be broad. Here's what I mean. A specific goal answers questions. Questions like, what needs to be accomplished? Why is this goal important? Who's involved? Where is it located? What resources or limits are involved in it? So it needs to be very specific. And we'll dive into this a bit more. I'm just going over what these things are. Measurable part is that a goal should have criteria for measuring the process, the progress made at achieving the goal. So this makes it possible to track your progress and stay motivated. It should answer questions like how much, how many, how will I know when it's accomplished? The achievable part, this means that it should be realistically attainable. We want to set big goals, but make them realistic. All right, that's that. Relevant is the second to the last part of SMART. Do you know how to spell SMART? I don't know how to say it, so you're doing okay if you can smell it. Smell it? All right, relevant. This just means that the goal should matter to you and align with whatever your objectives are. Whatever you wrote down, and we'll connect these. Whatever you wrote down in the first part of this video, it should connect to all of those. It should be worthwhile. And lastly, the T for SMART is time bound. So the goals that you create should have a deadline, like a defined timeline. All right, so just to wrap this SMART goals part up, just so you kind of understand what we're doing here, some examples of what a SMART goal might sound like. If one of your goals is you want to get fit, that might be how you write down like your goal. I want to get fit. But an example of a SMART goal would be that you want to, or I want to be able to run 3 miles without stopping in 3 months by training 3 times a week. If a goal that you wrote was like, I want to save more money, a SMART goal would be, I want to save $2,000 by December of this year by setting aside $250 from my paycheck. Specific, right? Specificity is important. Okay, so that's it. That's the SMART goals. Now we're going to get into the specifics of creating your path, your trail guide, using the answers from the questions that were asked in the last video. What we're going to do, as I said before, is we're creating not just one goal, not with just one SMART goal, we're creating 5. And each of these 5 goals connect with one of the high 5 foundational areas that we're going to be working on, areas of growth that we want to bring about in our life. Side note, this high 5 thing came directly from a book by Sean Whalen. Sean Whalen is the guy who came up with Lions Not Sheep. He has a book called How to Make Shit Happen. And in that, he discusses this idea of, he calls core 4. So that's where this whole thing came from. So you can either, to understand what this high 5 thing is, you can either read Sean Whalen's book. Maybe I'll put a link to it in the description if I remember to. Or you can, like I said, I'll put a link to a video where I discuss in detail these high 5 areas. But I'll go through them here for you because, you know, I'm just feeling really sorry for you, actually. So there are 5: mind, body, spirit, relationships, and work. So they're pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go through them here real quick. Mind. Specifically, your SMART goal connected to your mind should be focused on your mental well-being. This shouldn't be tied to your work or like a skill you're trying to bring in, but more focused on like educating yourself or meditation, or and not like spiritual side. We have a separate spiritual one. This is just about, you know, emotional management or like a philosophy you'd like to learn more about. It should be about, well, bettering your brain, whatever that looks like to you. Self-help, self-improvement. This is your brain side. The next one, body, pretty straightforward here. It's making yourself better and stronger, more fit. So this should be not just working out, this should also be your diet. So if you're fat and lazy or just skinny and weak and you need to be more fit, which you do, everybody does. I mean, there's some guys like they've got that down, but most of us don't, and we need to be better at that. So this goal is attached specifically to your diet and exercise. The next one, the spiritual side. This one we leave kind of open, but the point here is that this goal should be attached to chasing light versus darkness in your life, good rather than bad. So those dark areas of yourself, of your mind, of your relationships, it's bringing those into light, pursuing light in your life. So for me, that is directly connected to pursuing God and how I interact, my relationship with God and my relationship, my thoughts with church, all of those things. So that's the spiritual side, pretty obvious. Relationships are specifically focused on the relationships that matter most to you. So if you're anything like me, this will mean probably your family, specifically your wife, like your kids, being very detailed with those. If you're younger, then it could be your parents, your grandparents, a girlfriend, your dog. I don't know. You seem like a weirdo. The work side is specifically about money and how you make money, how you provide for your family, for yourself. This could be your current job or something you're trying to pursue, a side business, whatever. It's specific about money. And that's it. Those are the 5. All right. So that was a lot of information, I realize. So before you move on to step 2, what needs to happen now is hopefully you have at least a framework for what these goals should be. So get a piece of paper, get something to write on, your tablet. Yeah, I don't probably need to list out things you can write on. You probably understand that. Write down what these 5 goals are going to be for you attached to the high 5. These don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be detailed. You can change them as you go. You can tweak them. You can modify them. But before you move on to step 1, take some time, take as much time as you need to write down what those 5 things will be. And then we can move on to step 2. Do you need a break, by the way? Are you doing okay? Are you keeping up? You can, again, download all of this for completely free in the description below. But if you are taking notes, then, feel free. It's a little chilly in here. I am going to start the stove. When I say start the stove, I really mean press the button for the propane heat. Now, if you look at me in my push button propane starter there and you think, who is this idiot? Go out and cut some wood and start your own fire. We do have a wood stove in the other room. I just want to point that out so I can remain respectable. And we do cut and split our firewood by hand. Okay? All right, so step 2. You ready to dive in to specifics? What we'll do now is research your specific route. So here's what I want you to do for a second. Thinking of this mountain analogy, this mountain that we're climbing together, hopefully, or individually, it has no trails on it at all, no pathways. So that's why as we build this map, it's literally needed to get to the top of the mountain because there are no other paths to follow, unless you're doing this with somebody else and you can follow their path to some extent. But the idea here is that we need to research your route. How are you specifically going to get to the top of this mountain? Going back to point 1, hopefully that gave you enough information to figure out what your 5 goals are going to be. So we went through the SMART goals so you understand that they need to be specific, they need to be kind of figure out how to write them, and then you understand what the goals are attached to using the high 5. Your hands are soft. Going through all of the information that you wrote down in the first video, you should have a pretty good idea on what matters to you, what you're trying to become. And so all of that information should be used to come up with what your 5 SMART goals are. So write your 5 goals down. And you can refine these and change these as you move along. They don't have to be written in stone. You can rewrite them, you can change them, but at least you have them before we get into the step 2. So assuming you've done that, and you've written them all down, what we're going to do in step 2 is to break each of those 5 goals down: mind, body, spirit, relationships, work, whatever those 5 goals are. We're going to break them down into 6 things that need to happen, milestones, if you will, before you can actually reach them. So as an example, this could be that you need to learn something. You need to call someone. Maybe you need to gain a new skill, or maybe you need to gather up information before you can actually achieve that thing. So you have those 5 goals. Underneath each of those 5 goals, what 6 things, and make sure there's 6 things need to happen to achieve them. So that's the first thing we need to do. All right, so you should now have your 5 goals. Under those 5 goals, you should have broken them down into 6 things that need to happen to be able to achieve those things. Now what we're going to complicate this up even more. There's even more to do. Now you need a calendar. So whether you're old school and that's a physical calendar, or it's a calendar on your phone, or you want to download an app that helps you track, progress on goals or whatever you want to do. You actually put these goals and add dates to them. So what you're going to do is take your 6 milestones that you added, 1 for each of the 5 goals that you created, and the first milestone, the first thing that needs to happen in order to get to your goal, just write that down 30 days from today. And then the next milestone that needs to be accomplished after you do the first one should be added 60 days from today, and so on. So once every month, you should know what milestone needs to be achieved. So 30 days from today should be the first milestone, the 30 days from that, the second, the third, all the way till we get to 6 months from now. Does that make sense? It's not that complicated, but I am confusing myself a little bit. By the way, as just a little aside, I'm building this thing where, I'm collecting as many men as possible who want to climb up this mountain with me so we can go up it together. You can find out information about that in the description below, but you don't have to. You can follow this process. You can do whatever you want, okay? It's a free country. Or maybe not. I don't know where you're watching this from. You may be watching this in Canada, where you're not free. So now that you have each of these 5, 6, well, I guess there's 5 milestones you're writing, really, if you think this through, because your 6th milestone is like the goal being accomplished itself. So you're starting with the end and we're just working our way backwards. So does that make sense? You get it? You get what I'm saying, right? So the next thing you're going to do, there's more. This just keeps getting deeper and deeper, is next to each milestone that is next to your 5 goals, now you want to write down 4 tasks that need to be done to achieve that milestone. So you have like your 5 main goals, Then under that, you have 5 milestones for each goal. And then in between each of these 5 milestones for each, is that a lot of numbers? It sounds like a lot of numbers. But you're basically going to break down each of the milestones into 4 tasks that need to be done to achieve that milestone. If the milestone takes more than 4, it's totally fine. You can break it down into 7 what we'll call microsteps. So if it's fairly simple, if it's like to achieve this milestone, it doesn't take that much, break it down to 4. If it's like, no, this is a big milestone to achieve, you can break it down even more into 7 microsteps. Up to you. Now what we're gonna do is have even more fun. Do you like calendars? I hope you do, because that's what we're gonna be using next. So we're gonna schedule this thing out. Altogether, you should have 5 main goals. Each of those 5 main goals is broken down into 5 milestones. And each of those 5 milestones are then broken down into 4 tasks that need to be completed to complete the milestone, which then completes the main goal. By the way, I know I keep pushing this because it's, I think, absolutely needed, but if you do end up joining our community of men who are pursuing this, what you will do is share your calendar with the men in your group, because everyone's connected to a group, and they will badger you and force you to complete these things. So scheduling this out is pretty simple. You basically, you just want to take your 5 primary goals, add those to whatever 6 months ahead of today, or whenever you're starting. Hopefully you're starting today. 6 months ahead of today, you put the primary goals, then you go back 30 days and add whatever milestone needs to be completed before that. And then 30 days before that, the next milestone that needs to be completed before that one. And then 30 days before that, the milestone that needs to be completed before that one, until you get to 1 month from today, which is where you should end up. Then all you need to do is take those 4 tasks or 7 micro tasks and just add those to each week in each month. So once you're all said and done, you should have weekly tasks that lead to a milestone at the end of the month. And then once that milestone's completed, another 4 tasks that lead to the next milestone that needs to be completed. Then 4 tasks, milestone. Within 6 months, you'll be hitting your goal. And that, good friends, was a long way of explaining what should be so simple, what every man should understand, and I didn't, was how to create goals and accomplish them. I mean, when you think about this, literally, you are writing your future. Whatever those goals are that you set, if you break them down and you actually do the things that you need to do, you can see how you're guaranteed to achieve those goals, because you wrote it out. Do these things, the goals will be accomplished, right? You will have lost that weight. You will have become stronger. You will have read those books. You will have bettered the relationship you have with your wife or your kids. You will be spiritually stronger in 6 months, much stronger than today if you do these things. Because when you make these sacrifices, the outcomes that you're trying to achieve become evident, become real in your life. So the only thing that keeps people from doing this, and the reason why goals are so goal setting, goals don't work. What doesn't work is when you don't do the things that you're supposed to be doing. When you fail to complete the tasks or the milestones. When you fail to complete the daily steps that are needed to achieve the milestones that then achieve the goal. And that's why at the beginning of this, in the first video, we talked about repeating the same boring steps daily. That's literally all you have to do. It becomes a part of your routine. It becomes a habit eventually, but building that habit is annoying. It's difficult. It's something that you want to not do. And so people don't do them. So that's why, to me, the thing that prevents me from accomplishing my goals is myself, which is why I found that achieving big goals require other people to hold me accountable. A team is able to accomplish so much more than an individual. You will not find anybody who's been successful in any sport, whether it's an individual sport, like I used to do cross-country racing, cross-country mountain bike racing. It's an individual sport. That to football, where it's literally a team sport, both require other people to be really successful at it. I mean, you ask anybody who's won the Tour de France, or won the Super Bowl, it was not just them. There were people around them that kept them moving, kept them continuing upward towards excellence, towards their goal. And I think it's the same thing for us, for men, and becoming better and stronger, is we oftentimes try to rely on only ourselves and we continue to fail. We need other people who have the same goals in mind. We need, this is a whole nother video, but if you're interested in joining the group of men that I'm trying to put together to accomplish these tasks in our lives. I don't know how you get involved, but I'll have information in the description. I'll have a link or something where you can get in touch with me, and I'll get you plugged in. Most people who watch this aren't subscribed. This whole channel is about developing and bettering ourselves. So if that's of interest to you, I mean, maybe you just want to keep failing. You're a loser. It's fine. You can keep being a loser. But if you want to get out of that, it's going to be uncomfortable. Like maybe this video is. But anyways, subscribe, won't you? To be uncomfortable. Let's be uncomfortable together. All right. Goodbye.